This is The Resilient Life, where we believe that every human will struggle in this life. Our challenge is to struggle well. I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war, my mom to cancer, and I'm the daughter of a retired Marine. I'm also a wife, mom, author, and president of one of the nation's leading veteran service organizations. Join me and some incredible guests as we explore the value of struggling well through life's inevitable challenges. Welcome to another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. I am bringing on today an old friend, someone I'm really excited to be talking to. I haven't talked to you in a long time. U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Travis Mills. Travis, welcome to the Resilient Life.
Thanks for having me. I'll tell you what, old is right. I fell apart 55 and 35 now, 2 feet in the grave. It's wild, but guys approve the stress levels that I have. But anyway, thanks for having me. You look fantastic. Everything looks like it's going great, and I'm just excited to be here.
Yeah, it's I obviously we've kept in touch over the years, but I started to think back, and when I asked you to come on the podcast, I'm like, God, when did you and I first meet? And it was 2012. It was right after you were injured, and
yeah, I was heavily drugged up. I'm pretty sure. We talked, and what I recall, and I have a mother-in-law actually, reiterate this, was that I was pretty, upset, frustrated, kind of like, man, I'm not sure what I got going on. And you told me, my brother would be so fortunate to be in your situation. So just remember that, and it's stuck with me. Stuck with me over the last 10 plus years, and I think that's one of my big driving forces of me doing everything that I do. I mean, I've been blessed, even with my injuries, to live a pretty productive and fulfilling life.
Yeah. So you are in 2012, you're injured. You are on your third tour in Afghanistan, and you're hit by an IED, an improvised explosive device, and become one of, I think it's like only 5 quadruple amputees in the country.
Quadruple 5, and it's wild because I never thought early retirement would be so quick, but I was just like, man, I don't want to do 20. I'll just do 6 and call it. So I walked right into early retirement.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it coming, if I'm being honest. Kind of just accidentally hit it.
Do you think about that day at all? I mean, is that something where you actually think about, what happened that day? And there are some people that are very affected by the moment of an accident, when an accident happens. Is that something that you deal with?
No, so I don't worry about it. During my recovery process, I realized early on I can't change what happened. I mean, how many times I closed my eyes and I hope and wish praise isn't my situation. It was. The reality is the reality, right? So I don't live in the past or dwell on it. I learned quick to reminisce the past, which I had 25 amazing years with arms and legs, and one bad day at the office. But I also used to have my Alive Day, and every year that an anniversary of your Alive Day, they're like, "Oh, happy Alive Day," and you don't know how to really take it. And my birthday is 4 days after my injury, right? So like I literally turned 24 when I woke up for the first time from medical sedation in Germany from being knocked out by the doctors on the operating table because I was trying to tell the nurses to quit touching me. And I would hate that day. Like, I'm like, I don't want to celebrate this. We're not going to talk about this. My buddy Scott Mallard's birthday today is what we'll talk about. And then as the years click by, like 7 and 8, I got a little more like, man, I'm happy to have that. And then this year was a big milestone, like a decade. And we had a big party at my house, the surprise party for me. And we were filming a documentary with Magnolia Network that came out on Veterans Day, but they were here for April, and they flew some of my military buddies in and family. And, I told them, hey guys, I used to hate this day, but really I am so grateful to still be here to enjoy this time with you. And I guess so. I mean, the short answer is I don't really worry about it, right? I can't change how my life came out. I can't regrow my arms and legs, and I've been so blessed with Kelsey staying on my side. My daughter's 11 now; she was 6 months old, and we have our son Dax, who's named after the medics, Daniel and Alexander, that saved my life. So we mashed our names up, came up with Dax, and he's 5, and he's a champion.
I remember when, obviously in 2012, there's a lot of young men and women that are being injured in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, the Travis Manion Foundation had just kind of hit its peak. And we were doing a lot of things, but really one of the things we didn't do was we weren't one of the groups that was down at Walter Reed working with, and supporting newly injured veterans that were, going through what you had gone through. But I can't even remember now at the time who connected us with your story. But I remember hearing, about this young guy named Travis who was down at Walter Reed, had lost, 4 of his limbs, and it was April, and my brother Travis was killed in April. And I just remember feeling such this kind of tie to you because of that. And it was probably the first time that I had gone to Walter Reed. And I remember going down there. And yes, you were heavily sedated. But you still had like such a sense of humor to you. And I marveled at just, and we all knew at that time you had such a long road ahead. I mean, it was just, this was like just the beginning. And your mother-in-law was there, and your wife was there, who was so wonderful. And your daughter was there. But I just remember like thinking like, this guy's going to be okay, because there was something about just your attitude and the way you were approaching what you had been dealt that, I just knew you were going to be okay. And not only just okay, but I knew that you were going to do something after this life-changing moment. So it's been like so awesome to just see you thrive in this new world and this new life that you had been given. Like you said, you had one bad day at work, and one bad day was the loss of all 4 of your limbs. And then, here I am scrolling. It was just yesterday I'm scrolling. I think it was on Jocko Fuel, and they had a video up from Goldcast, and you're speaking to the audience, and you're like, I'm going to be honest with all of you guys, and you're holding up your one prosthetic. You're like, I don't wash my hands after I use the bathroom. And
oh, I wash my hand, of course, but just the plural of hands. But yeah, so who was your brother's roommate at college?
Brendan Mooney.
I thought your brother was connected to Leif. I thought Babin somehow.
No, so Leif and Travis both went to the academy, but Leif was a little bit older than Travis.
Okay, because I thought maybe that's what you saw. Like Jenna, his wife was on Fox News, and she had my story. But
it might have been Jenna, because Jenna and I were friends, so it might have been Jenna that introduced me to the story of you. Yeah, it might have been Jenna.
And I'm still friends with them.
Yeah.
I do get the chance to rep Jocko's energy drinks. I have the watermelons, which is my flavor. Whoop a salt, because you couldn't put the A word on a can, so we had to put a salt. But no, it's been a wild ride. I mean, at the hospital, 19 months of recovery, learning how to do everything, like get a prosthetic hand, dress myself, use the restroom by myself, do all that. And then I learned how to walk with my prosthetic legs, learn how to drive eventually. And Kelsey and I were showing so much love and support, like, from you guys. And there's other people like Gary Sneeze Foundation doing some really great things that we thought we should do something to give back. And we started our foundation to give back to veterans that have been through, physical injuries, due to service. So it could be car accident, whatever. And then it's grown to what it is now, which is insane, where we bring out 8 families per week to this retreat in Maine. And we also have a post-traumatic stress program, which is important for your listeners, because if you have a combat veteran listening or a first responder that has post-traumatic stress, we have partnered with Warrior Path program, which is out of Boulder Crest Foundation in Virginia. And we get a grant every year. So we do 12 weeks a year. It's like one of the best in the nation, program wise. And we're really, really changing people, their mindset, so they know that you're going to struggle, but you can struggle well as post-traumatic stress can also be post-traumatic growth. So I'll get off my soapbox here. Sorry, you're supposed to be asking me questions, and I just went on a tangent.
No, I appreciate that. And, so let's go back to, your 19 months in Walter Reed, and then you get out. What are you thinking at that time? Are you thinking, I mean, you're not thinking I'm going to start this foundation and I'm going to do things for others, or is that immediately your thought? Like, how am I going to pay it forward?
We actually started the foundation while I was still at the hospital.
Okay.
But it was care packages for overseas for the guys that I served with and their new units. And we were just going to do that. But then these people in Maine thought, hey, I saw you snowboarding. I saw you doing this. Like, we should do something in Maine. And they were going to call it the Travis Mills Project. They were going to run it. I was going to be just like life normally, hands off. And we raised so much funds, but then the nonprofit that was running it was like, hey, we're not raising any funds for us. We can't do this. We're going to let it fizzle out. And I'm like, I'm not from Maine. I went around all over, but skydiving with at the time, the governor of Maine's wife to raise funds. And I'm like, and then you're just going to tell me it fizzles out now? Like, and I'm going to move here? I said, no, we'll take it over. So what we started with to where it's at now was never the plan, but it's no big deal because it's been doing really well. And then I also, when I got out, all I wanted to do is I wanted to get out. I wanted to retire. I want to be done with the hospital. My kids are going to the hospital. I want to be out of this place. So they said I'd be there 3 years. I did it in 19 months. The last 6 months was a lot more paperwork and like getting things set up and recovery, if you will. And then I got to my in-laws' house in Texas because my house in Maine was getting built. And I got to my in-laws' house, and I remember like seeing a picture of me with my green or like my full army kit, right? Like the day before I got blown up, I took a picture on April 9th of my AR-15. Look at me, I'm saying AR-15. It's an M4 in the military. I know that, but like I'm so out of the military. But like I had my gun and my grenades and whatever. A really cool picture of my orange hat on that says Vassar Vulcan is the town I'm from. And I looked up the picture and I was like, who's that? Like, I'm not that guy no more. Like broke down, was tearing up, and I was like, who am I gonna be? And I had no idea because at the hospital I was somebody. At the hospital I was Travis Mills, quadruple amputee, but also they would ask me to go talk to people and be a mentor and to help, and my positive personality, and everybody knew me, but it's also the safe space of like everybody here's like me. So I'm not going to the grocery store and having people like, what happened to him? Like you're in the store and like it's a parent of somebody that's messed up or whatever, or somebody that's seen you. So it's not weird. And I remember having that moment where I was just like, this is all I ever wanted, for 19 months. And now it's here. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And who am I? And at the time I had, luckily been able to find a guy to start working out with. Now he has a Adaptive Training Foundation. I'm not sure if you've ever talked with David Vivora, but he was a linebacker from the NFL. They got hurt, addiction to drugs. And now has the Adaptive Training Foundation down in Texas. And they bring a lot of, military members through, and people that have been in horrible car accidents and stuff like that, just in the civilian world that are paralyzed or need to adaptively work out. So anyways, I worked out with him, and he started his nonprofit with like guidance from me because I paid full price because he's a trainer of athletes for, Olympic athletes and NFL combine players and baseball players. And so I worked out with him, regained some confidence, started speaking. And I've been very blessed in the speaking world. I'm on the circuit where I do about 40 a year for my Travis Mills Group LLC company, which is based out of Chicago. And well, it's here, but I have a speaker for out of Chicago. And every time I go and speak, I get my actual honorarium or my price, but then they also usually donate. So we've been growing the foundation every year, and it's just been a wild ride. We went from Kelsey and my wife, me, and Kelsey, my wife, and me, and my father-in-law to, there's like 32 full-time employees now, I think. That's so, yeah, it's crazy. I covered a lot of ground there. We get to unpack what you want to unpack. You're in charge here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I'm not trying to mess with you. I see the brass knuckles. I know that. Not.
I love it. And, and I love that you talked about like, when you got out of out of Walter Reed, it's all you ever wanted. You tried to fast track that to get to that place. And then you find out like, now what am I going to do? And, I've talked to, I had Rob Jones on the program early on, and he shared a little bit about that. Like you almost lose your identity when you leave Walter Reed, because it is this kind of, it's this group of individuals and like and I've had Kyle Carpenter on, and Kyle talked about you're just like in this place where you almost take this leadership role on, right, at the hospital, and you're working with others, and then you leave, and it's almost like that's the point where it's like the real work starts, right? And this idea of struggle well, I say it all the time, I hashtag it all the time. You can't be blind to the fact that like no one's going to expect you to walk out of Walter Reed and be like, let's go, right? Like you had to go through moments of just questioning like, oh my gosh, this is my life now.
Well, it was so wild. Like I was, all I ever wanted was get out and get out. And then I got out, and I do have a pension. So like I'm taken care of, Gary Sneeze Foundation and Tone Towers Foundation and Karen Charitable Foundation were working together, and they built my wife and I a nice house in Maine. And it's just like, okay, but what am I gonna do and who am I? Life's peaks and valleys, and I get that. And I was in high school as an all like state catcher. I was a football, standout. I played college football, and then I went to the military because I had to find something new. I was like, I didn't like college, to be honest with you. So then I went into the military, and I'm like a nobody. And then I worked my way up to like where I am somebody. I was the youngest D6 of my troop. I was the weapons squad leader, which is a senior spot. I was probably going to make E7 really fast, which I made 6 and 5 really fast. And I was somebody. And then I went to the hospital, and I was somebody at the hospital too, because a lot of people that get injured are like E4, E3, E2, privates and stuff. And specialists. So like I was an older guy, even though I was only 25 years old. But then get through my recovery, and I moved to Frisco, Texas, where I'm nobody, and that's fine. I don't need the limelight. I'm not saying like everybody should know me when I walk in the room. Like, you don't know me? Are you serious? But it's a different thing. It's kind of like that in Maine now, though, because I live in Maine, so 1.3 million people. So if people don't know me, I'm kind of offended. I'm like, are you? And the only reason I say that, I've been very fortunate. So the thing is, like, people know me, for the Travis Mills Foundation, for my injuries, the documentary. I said the new one come out, High on Travis, on HBO Max and Discovery Plus, my book. But I'm actually quite the serial entrepreneur. Like I have kind of an issue because I bought a marina 8 years ago with a buddy, and then next to that, we just opened a restaurant. We hit our year milestone on Saturday. This past Saturday. So we've been open a year with one of the top restaurants. We lost Maine's best new restaurant by a couple of votes.
That's awesome.
Still bitter. I'm putting in a brewery in a tasting room and event center currently, and I just I started a clothing line called Rebel for Good, and just I don't know, just kind of doing what I can.
You're doing it all.
It's arrogant though. It sounds arrogant, Ryan. I don't mean to sound arrogant. I was given a chance to live, and now I just take on opportunities. I got offered another opportunity just the other day that I don't know if I'm going to do or not, but we'll see. My wife actually, this is the only idea I've ever had. She's like, that's not actually a bad idea. I'm like, whoa, now we have something.
Well, I have to tell you, I appreciate that you're, taking every opportunity that's thrown in front of you and trying to do something with it. I'm sure I did say to your mother-in-law that day, like, hey, my Travis would kill to be in your Travis's position, and so to see you going out there and taking advantage of the opportunity you have to do good and set the example. I mean, it is an example for others, and everybody should know who you are because of that. I'd love to talk about what parenthood looks like. With
I know you're supposed to edit. I had text my wife. My dogs are out the window barking at nothing. So I'm not sure if you get the microphone, but I just asked her if she can get the dogs. So
we don't hear the dogs. You're all good.
Anyway, how parenthood looks, right? Sorry. So you asked how parenthood looks. I mean, I'm pretty awesome as as a parent. Like I'm a pushover for my daughter. My son, I'm way harder on. Me and Chloe are best friends, literally. So it was like, that's going to change. And I'm like, you mind your tongue, because that's not going to change. And it's cool because even though I'm like the guy with no arms, no legs, like I built myself up to establish that I'm so much, more than that, right? Like the first thing people identify me as is, Chloe's dad or Dax's dad. The next thing would be, the Travis Mills Foundation. I mean, I can literally sit there at my restaurant, talk to a table. They ask, oh, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm fortunate to be one of the owners of the restaurant, and I'm just kind of talking and joking and stuff. And then they're like, oh, well, what's your name? And I tell them, they're like, oh, there's a guy who has a foundation. I'm like, no, that's me. I have, so people know me for good. So the fact that I'm well, like, represented by that does, makes my kids hopefully have pride. And I think I don't let myself be any different. Like we walked into my daughter's basketball game yesterday, and my son wanted to play on the playground, so I just sat outside the playground with him and played and went to the basketball game. And then I sit there and I cheer like everybody else, and I talk to the parents, and it's just it's normal. It's just how it works, I guess.
Do you ever feel like you have any, physical limitations on what you want to be able to do with your kids?
Oh, like I can't get on a swing or anything like that, and like pushing my son on the swings, like I can do it. It's trying, and I feel bad because my hand is kind of hard. So if I push him too hard, he's like, "Oh, but that's okay, Dad." And I'm like, That's too. But I'm actually better on the trampoline than I used to be. So like, get my arms and legs off, I can do backflips. We play tag and whatnot. So we actually have a really good time. So there's definitely physical limitations that I face, and understanding what I can and can't do. I know I can, play uh, like in the water, or I can kayak and I can do stuff like that, but I can't, like, I'm not gonna play baseball. I can't throw a ball,
Right.
but get a pitching machine, no big deal. We'll make the adjustment and we'll adapt it.
Yeah, I love it. You just try to overcome that with figuring out the solution. And do you find like, so you've got all these other things going, you talk about being at your bar and you're talking to people, and if people don't automatically know that you're Travis Mills, the Army veteran that was injured in Afghanistan, do you ever come across instances where people ask you, or just like, like what happened to
Oh
you?
yeah, yeah. Everybody, they always ask me, airports everywhere, like, were you military or this and that? I'm like, oh yeah, and I just tell them, yeah, hey, my name's Travis Mills. You can check me out, travismills.org or whatever. And I'm very open about it. Like, I understand people's curiosity, and I understand why they look at me. It's not like I don't feel bad about it. Like, I've never. I mean, some adults should know a little better than to like really stare hard. So like when I make eye contact, they're still staring, and I'm like, all right, you had your look, bro. Come on now. But like with kids, like, what happened to that man? And the parents like, oh, and I'm just like super honest about. And I'm like, oh no, you can ask. Don't worry about it. Like, this is what happened. I was in the military, and look at my cool trick. I spin my hand in a circle, and we go our separate ways. But it just changes the whole narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, not making it like stigmatized, and I've talked to other people that have had, have lost limbs, or, suffered facial deformities from an accident. And I love, and I think it's kind of this overwhelming common thread that, kind of normalizing kids being able to ask those questions, instead of like, a kid looks and the parent says, look away, don't look, and just being like,
Yeah.
hey, well, what, go and ask them, let them
Yeah.
share with you.
I mean, I walked into my son's karate class the other day, and some kid like just touched my arm randomly, and I was like, "Well, like, he was old enough to know, like, don't just touch random strangers. Like, I'm not a petting zoo. So like, I have some people that, I'm not gonna sit here and lie, like, they irritate the shit out of me. Like, they'll walk over with their kid, like, look at him, look at his arm, look, and I'm like, okay, well, this isn't show and tell, like, and I don't know you personally, so like, you can go away, you know. And I'm like super nice and welcoming, so like, it's very far and few between. But when they like try talking slower to me, and they act like I'm like on display for their own benefit, but then I'm not smart enough to know like what they're doing. I don't know. There's characters in the world. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm usually pretty cool about it. I tell you who's got a shorter temper. My wife. She gets a little irritated sometimes with people.
Yeah.
And but yeah, she has no problem saying like, okay, well, we're doing something else, so thank you,
Yeah.
goodbye, and
I can
end the conversation.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd probably be the same way. So I love, you started the Travis Mills Foundation. Like you said, you started that when you were still in Walter Reed. And you know, I can't tell you, I don't know if you get this a lot, but like people very often confuse our two organizations. You've got the Travis Mills Foundation, the Travis Manion Foundation. We both use TMF as an acronym in different things. We both have similar logos, which I love. I think it's freaking fantastic. But
Well, mine got the double A's in it for the 82nd Airborne.
well, you have that. We do not have that. We have the
You
T and the M.
got Yeah, I know there's T and M. Look, trust me, it's very gangster. I get it.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, sorry, we got the chevrons for the stripe. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But no, and there's a guy in Maine that's very well known called Travis Roy. He was a freshman in hockey and college, and he broke his neck. He was paralyzed from the neck down or whatever. So a lot of people were like, oh, Travis Roy. And I'm like, no, different guy. I'm Travis Mills. But yeah, so I get that more than anything else, because when it's me talking to them, like, oh yeah, you're Travis Roy, the hockey player. I'm like, he's paralyzed from the neck down. Yeah, I know. I'm like, yeah, that's not me.
I'll
Not
have a
me.
lot of people ask me, they'll say, well, how, it just happened to me recently. And it happened with someone that, and I can't remember who it was, not that I would repeat it, but it was somebody that was kind of like in the space and probably should have done their research a little bit better. And they were like, well, how's Travis doing? And I'm like, he's watching over all of us. And he's like, yeah, and I was like, I didn't want to be like, he's dead. And
yeah,
like, he's watching over all of us. And he's like, and he still didn't like, and he was like, yeah, it ended up, they like thought I was Kelsey, right? So they thought I was your wife, and kept going down the rap, and finally said something about, amputee. And I was like, no, that's I'm Travis Manion's sister. Travis Manion was killed in Iraq. Travis Mills is who you're, and they like, it was one of those moments they caught themselves. They were like, oh, but that happens. And then a lot of people be like, well, do you do a lot of work with the Travis Mills Foundation? And I'm like, I know what they do. We have complementary like organizations. We don't partner with them a ton, but they automatically think Travis Mills, Travis Manion, like we're doing it all together, so. Which I love. I think it's great.
Both our chiseled chins, with his chiseled chin and mine, obviously, it's probably. No, actually, I need to work on some weight loss stuff. But anywho, that's just my own personal problem. But no, the thing is, like what you guys do with all the educational pieces and all that, there's room for everybody in the space. But I do think that foundations like ours are going to keep growing, whereas the little like the one-offs are kind of, unfortunately, they're kind of going by the wayside. And I think with us in the next 5 to 10 years, we might expand and have a few more centers around the nation, so a few more retreats that we're going to build. And we have some interest from us, some people in other states. So we'll see how it goes. I just, I try to just be a niche thing. Like, oh, hey, look, we take people that are in this situation due to service, and we bring them and their families out, which is different than what this organization does or this one, but this, and then that way the great lines of communication, when people reach out to us for stuff that we don't do anything with, we're like, hey, look, but these ones do, and this is what we try to pass along to everybody.
And I think that's really so important. If you're not in the veteran service world, it's kind of hard to know how to navigate and who's doing what. And I think a lot of times there are certain organizations that try to be everything to everyone for funding, and and at the end of the day they fail because they don't do anything in a robust and concrete way. And I think understanding the role that you play within this space and how you're working with the military community is so important. And I think that was only highlighted over these last few years with COVID, because you saw a lot of these veteran service organizations essentially have to shut their doors because some of what they were saying they did, they just simply didn't do. And they weren't able to keep up with the resources. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think, there's nothing that kills me more than when a veteran says, I didn't know where to go. And when, you and I being within this space, we know all of the amazing resources that exist outside of the VA and government that exist for our veterans. And to hear a veteran say, yeah, everything was just so confusing. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to go to. I think we've created that problem a little bit ourselves, because there is this like overwhelming amount of groups that are out there. And a lot of times veterans are getting connected with groups that actually aren't providing them the help and support that they need. And then they fall into this place where they're distrusting everything that's out there and presented to them. And so, I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts on the VSO world in general. For me, I think that it's a good thing that some of these, and I don't want to say smaller, because it's not always smaller nonprofits that are closing their doors, but I think some of these nonprofits that aren't totally transparent, that aren't, upholding what they say they're going to do and actually doing that. And, a little bit of it is like, there's a lot of people that frankly are in it for themselves. And you see that a lot. So what are your thoughts on where the VSO space is right now?
I mean, we have ones that we work with, right? Like with you, Independence Fund, Simplify Fund, Gary Sneeze Foundation, Caring Charitable Foundation, Tunnel Towers, and when people ask us something specific, we know how to, get them in the right direction where they need to go. If it's not something that we do, but I don't. I get asked to like partner a lot. Like, hey, Travis, want to partner and we'll do this and we'll split funds, and I'm like, no, sorry, we're not gonna, do that. And I know I feel sometimes like a jerk, right? But I also know that we started this foundation with $5,000 for care packages from Kelsey and I, and where we've grown it is pretty remarkable. It's all based off integrity, doing the right thing, being very transparent and open, and staying in our lane. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get a lot of people ask me like, what this foundation or that, and I'm like, I unfortunately no, I haven't heard of it, but it doesn't mean they're not a good foundation, but I just haven't heard of it. And I just think as the wars have dwindled down, a lot of that stuff is kind of went by the wayside. So, you're always adjusting and adapting and trying to overcome or to pivot to make sure that you're successful. And you've done a great job at that, with everything you do. I mean, how many programs do you got? I mean, like people do you touch a year? It's like in the tens of thousands or more, right?
Yeah, we've got 150,000 members across the country.
Right. But then you guys also go out and you do all your educate. Last time I talked,
we work with about 50,000 kids a year. Veterans are mentoring. Yeah.
10,000s I was talking about. So I'm like, yeah, because you guys actually go and get yes. So like, but you found like, hey, this is a great spot for me to be in, something I enjoy doing, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I get people that say, hey, I love what you're doing, Travis. I want to do the same thing. How'd you do it? And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like I have no problem giving you the information of how to do it. And the first thing I tell you is you have to have something that people believe in, and something that people want to get behind. And if you don't have that, like I had a group bring me out one time, and I don't know how I got signed up to do it. And they wanted basically to have people donate to build like this clubhouse for their motorcycle club. And like, yeah, we're gonna bring a veteran up, like once or twice a winter. So you're like, we want people to donate so we can fix up this old like motel they bought, like a massive thing. And I'm like, so you want to bring a veteran up every now and then and have someone else pay for all your stuff? I said, automatically, nobody's gonna donate to that.
Yeah.
And well, we're gonna bring veterans up. I'm like, yeah, it's just a clubhouse for you guys. Like, there's no way that people are going to donate to that. And if they do, they're going to feel like they got cheated. And then it kind of hurts their feelings. So like I kind of stopped doing those kind of meetings. But I've been fortunate, right? I have a pension. I work a lot, but I also am very blessed that because of my other jobs, I don't need to take a salary or anything from the foundation. So I can tell people like, never taking a dime. It's all about giving back. This is about just because my name's on it. I'm not trying to like make money off my name of that and whatnot. So like I've been blessed in the world where my for-profit businesses allow me not to have to take a salary, even though I probably put anywhere between 20 to sometimes 80 hours a week, at the foundation. But now we have an executive director, Heather Hemphill, who's absolutely fantastic. And our program director, Kelly, our vice president of program, I can't remember her title. I mean, she's been there, she's a Walter Reed physical therapist. And Chris with facilities, and Justin with our development, and Kayla with the office stuff. I mean, we just have the right people in place. And that's the one thing people wonder about how I've been successful with restaurants and marinas and whatever. And I say, well, I'll be honest with you, I just build the right team. If you build the right team, you can go anywhere. And that's the one thing I pride myself on it being able to do. Just like this other opportunity my wife said that wasn't a bad idea. First time in 10 years she's ever told me it's not a bad idea to start another business. I've already started making calls to build the right team behind it, to make sure that I get it all put in place before I do a deal. But anyway, that's just weird to bring up because we can't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you about it when we go offline, of course. I love when you talk about, the right team. You had the right team. And I say that a lot. Like, when I took over the foundation, I worked there, but my mom passed and my mom was in charge. And so I took the foundation over, and I felt wholly unprepared to be running the organization. And really didn't know. And I felt like this tremendous weight and tremendous burden that I had to not only make sure that I was moving forward with the what my mom had put into place, because she had built the foundation. She died actually, I when I came down to visit you, she had just passed away, because she passed April 24th of 2012. And we were down at Walter Reed, shortly thereafter. But I had just taken over the foundation, and it was like I had to step into my mom's shoes. And I also had to, like you, that the name of the foundation bears my brother's name. Like, what a tremendous responsibility for me that I don't let this fail, that I don't in any way tarnish his incredible name, right? And a lot of people will say, well, what did you do? Did you enroll in nonprofit courses? Because I didn't even know this world. I had to learn it on the go. And I'm like, no, you know what I did? I hired a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me. And I built a fantastic team that we were able to work together to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish with what we were doing. And I think it's so important to, like, when you look at anything you're doing within business or personal or professional, everything you do as an individual is built upon a team, right? It's all about the relationships that we make, the team that we build to accomplish the goals we want to accomplish. And I am always looking for people that are far superior to me with their talent, and they can come in and teach me things. And I think, honestly, at the Travis Manion Foundation, I can say we've got almost 80 employees, and I learned something from each and every one of them, because they are all so incredibly talented. You can't just hire people that are going to work. You got to hire people that are passionate and that want to move the mission forward.
Well, if they're smarter than you, but you're still their boss, it feels pretty good, right? You know what I'm saying? No. But so I love it, because Kelsey and I, we weren't in this world at all. Like, no way. I'm from a small town, middle of nowhere. But I had to stop, like, at year, I think year 8, probably. I had to stop saying, like, well, I never did this before. Like, like, I used to use the excuse, like, well, it's my first time. We're figuring it out. But now I'm like, okay, we're at year like 10 or whatever, and maybe it's year 7. I can't remember, like 13. So yeah, this will be our 10th year. But anyway, like around like year 7, I said it to somebody, and they looked at me and said, Travis, you literally can't say that anymore. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll stop. I was like, that was my get out of jail free card. Like, I was like, well, I never did this before, blah, blah, blah. But now, like, unfortunately, now we've kind of been at it long enough where I can't use that excuse.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever used that excuse. Maybe you haven't. I'm sure.
I think I used it in the beginning. I would be like, I'm not sure. I don't really. Yeah. But yeah, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, and now I love saying, hey, I remember when I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I know what I'm doing now. And I feel very confident in what we do as an organization, what I do as the leader of this organization. But yeah, I still look for people that are smarter than me to hire. 100%.
Oh yeah, and like our exec director, she's like 32, and she's absolutely fantastic. Mom of 2 kids, her husband's a Marine, former Marine, but always a Marine, whatever you want to say. A great guy. And I do actually get in trouble because I hire a lot of people that are like my friends, like they're like family friends, like that sometimes can bite you. But like Chris and Kelly, which Kelly was there with me at Walter Reed, and then she met Chris, and now he's like facilities director. So I have a lot of people like in my inner circle that run these businesses, and like I tell everybody, we all work together, because honestly, like, if anybody has to find out they actually work for me, like, that's usually the last day they work for me, because something went so wrong that I had to like lose sleep probably for 2 weeks to go there and tell them, like, hey, it's not working out.
Yeah. But
usually not with my management team. So it's been a wild ride. The whole thing's been a wild ride, but with everybody willing to step up to the plate, help me learn how to I would say recalibrate. So I tell people I'm a recalibrated warrior. So I just, and it's nothing against Wounded Warrior Project. People think it is, but like, I hate being called wounded. Because I used to be, right? Like, I used to be wounded, but now I got scars. So I've healed. I have had to find what they at the hospital call your new normal. I wake up my room, I wake up my bed, I jump my wheelchair, I get my arm like off the charger. I go make coffee and then get my wife's coffee all set up, and she wakes up and the kids wake up, and I take my daughter to school, then my son to school, and then if I'm in town, but I'm on the road like 120 days a year. it's pretty awesome to have the ability to have that much work. But sometimes I get in trouble because I say yes to everything, and now I got a buffer. I got a general like a business manager that he makes sure that I can either say yes or no to things, and that's about it. So, but anyway, I mean, I guess I'm on a long tangent here, but as bad as the situation is, I know how blessed I am to still be here. So I make the most of everything that I can.
Do you ever find, that there are, now you're in this world where you are in amputee, right? So you've been so for the last 10 years. I doubt that it's something that you thought about, like accessibility for, disabled individuals. Like, do you ever find that that's something you've become passionate about? I mean, I have to imagine that in this new normal, you see a lot of accessibility challenges for disabled individuals. Do you see that, or do you not even, is that not even something that's part of your daily
Yeah,
practice?
it's not. It probably should be, right? And I'm not callous to it, like where I'm like, oh, what person can do that? Why are they being such a sissy? But I go upstairs. If I have to go upstairs, no big deal. I do what I have to do, and I just look at myself as I have a few extra steps in the morning, right? Put my legs on, my pants, my arm on, my shirt, and that's all there is to it. So I don't. There's some places I'm like, well, I can't get in there, or I'll try it, and I freak people out. But no, I don't because I'm not a wheelchair bound. It's not as difficult to get into places that everybody can get into. Sometimes it's a little bit weird, and I got to figure it out. But
Tell me about a
that
weird. Tell me what you mean by weird. Tell me a weird situation.
like downtown Portland, Maine is like very hills. It's a lot, really big hills, and we went to this Portland Pies, like a pizza place, kind of a franchise, like a chain, not a chain. It's like well, there's a few of them, so I guess it would be a chain, but not like a big chain or whatever. And like they're building it was like on a downward slope to get to the building, so like I had to walk down a hill kind of fast, and I got to turn sideways fast to stop to get to the stairs that are very steep. They go straight up right to the door. There's no like landing for the door, so I got to open the door. I got to lean on the door, like the door frame, get in there, and then the floor slopes down and it comes back. It's a very old building, and that was just like last month. I was just like, awesome. And it was icy out too. If you live in Maine, it's cold out, so it's a little icy. But then I went to Quebec City for they have the German Christmas market. If you ever get a chance to go, it's actually pretty cool in Canada. So I went to Quebec City, and like it's just all hills. So like I remember like I was basically ice skating, but more like just going backwards because I walk down the stairs backwards usually if I because I can only fall uphill that way. And we're on this ramp, and I was going backwards, and I was literally just sliding. Well, my buddy like with one leg. Chris only has one leg, and he's holding me. He's sliding too, and kind of just skated down like 3 blocks. And I made it, but I actually walked in the street after that. I was like, cars would go around me because the sidewalks ain't safe. But I mean, there's that stuff. Then if I fall randomly, it's never good if I kick my foot and trip or whatever and fall. Like I fell in a snowstorm the other day, and had these two guys help me up. Usually I'm just like, no, 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 don't help me. But I was in a bad way. I say, all right, go for it.
You're like, yeah, I need some help.
Yeah, I'm going to accept it today. And I think it'd be because with my close friends that I hang out with all the time, like they actually kind of forget that I have my arms and legs missing. Like my buddy Dane, I sponsored his son's little league team, and I said, oh, I'm going to sponsor a team if you're the coach and you guys win. And they did. But then he told Kelsey, he's like, hey, can you come do the first pitch? And Kelsey goes, Dane, how's he going to throw a pitch? And Dane goes, oh, I forget. Sorry. I get that a lot where someone's like, hey, can Travis just do this? And it's like, no, he actually, he can't. And I'm like,
You have
oh
a
yeah, I
lot of
forget.
people that will walk up and like put their hand out to you to shake your hand.
I just throw the left arm out first.
Okay.
And then some people get so awkward to like grab my little arm and they shake it. And I'm like, yeah, that's awkward, but okay, whatever. I get it was weird for you. So no big deal. Just shake my little arm. So yeah. But anyways, always like, don't wear a coat. And I was like, aren't you cold? And I would have a t-shirt on, and I'm like, no, I brought my long sleeve today. And take these legs off. I got pants on, so we're good. But it's pretty adorable. My 5-year-old now, like, he wants to wear shorts. Every time we say, hey, go get dressed, and he'll put shorts on. Dead of winter, he's like, put shorts on. Yeah. And I was like, why do you do that? He goes, well, you wear shorts. I'm like, oh, if it's an honor to me. You can wear shorts all day, buddy. But he was putting pants on, then shorts. He's gotten out of that now, but we're good.
Yeah, I've got an 8-year-old that all he does is want to wear shorts in the winter. And I finally just gave in. I was like, you know, he's not going to die from wearing shorts. You know, he's not going to catch hypothermia. I'm like, why am I fighting this? So I'm like, if you're wearing shorts, you got to wear a sweatshirt. If you're wearing pants, because he'll come down in shorts and a short sleeve shirt. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. It's 30 degrees outside. Like you got to be long on one of them.
Yeah.
Well,
my daughter,
go ahead.
So you guys know, wearing coats is not cool in middle school. Not cool.
Yeah.
Me and her had quite the altercation of verbal back and forths about you're taking a coat. No, I'm not. You're taking a coat. Well, I'm not going to school then. You're taking a coat. She took the coat. Then I got to the school. None of the kids were wearing coats. I said, you don't got to wear your coat no more. Sorry about this morning. I can't let who's are wearing a coat. Ugh.
Yeah.
But apparently
my kids put their coats in their backpacks, it's like in their backpack. And then it's still in their backpack when they come home. So again, I don't know. Why do I stuff it in their backpack? They're not wearing it.
Well, her middle school has no lockers. This is way off topic what we're supposed to probably talk about today. But her middle school has no lockers, so she has to carry all of her books in her backpack all around. So there's no room for her coat. There's no hook for her coat. And I'm like, so I told her this morning, I said, hey, just so you know, next week's supposed to be like -15. So just go ahead and make sure you get your thick sweatshirts out. She goes, I'll get the thick ones out, Dad. I'm like, perfect.
I think I stuffed the coats in the backpack. So like the teachers think that I'm a good parent because they're like, oh, she sent them to school with the coat. It's the kids that are choosing not to wear it.
Yeah.
It's actually for my own benefit more than anything else.
I great I am. So they know. He's on day one. Do you need any cash for all days? No? Okay, well, talk to me. Let me know. But yeah.
Let's talk about again, you're funny as shit. And was that something where was like humor a real big character strength for you before that you were injured?
Oh, yeah, it was. But I get lucky because now I'm not as annoying. Like I used to have jokes people were like, oh, real funny. Now they just feel bad. So like I'm way funnier. And I went to my high school and I told all the kids there, like I was speaking in my high school, I said, you know what, guys? The teachers in school, they're really great. They are. And they know most everything, but they don't know everything. And what I mean by that is they always told me, stop talking in class. I was a class clown. And I stopped talking in class. And now I get paid to go speak. So they held me back my full potential. So if you think they're doing that to you, don't worry. They did it to me too. But, and I was obviously joking. I always got yelled at for talking. But no, I use humor. And I also hate compliments. Like, I joke around like, oh, I'm awesome, blah, 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 and then humble. But really, I'm not good at like I just like to deflect like to everybody else. Like I'll tell a joke and then when it gets awkward, I try to joke around. Like I am not a guy to take to a funeral. Just like the Bare Naked Lady song. You know what I mean? Like I try to tell jokes or I say stuff that's awkward and I get really uncomfortable at funerals because I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Do you think you use humor sometimes as a defense mechanism?
Well, yeah, it's also how I break the ice, right? Humor is the best. I keep trying to show my hook. I have a hand. It's downstairs. I came up here.
Why'd you put the hook on today?
The hook's more, okay, so here's the thing. When I'm in public, the hand's always on. When I'm at home, I got the hook on. The hook's way more usable. It does, look at this. It folds right in, so I got a fork. I can, whatever. The hook, but it's a hook, so I don't wear it in public. So my hand, my iWatch is downstairs or Apple Watch, or whatever it is, downstairs, just waiting for me to click it back on when I go get my son from school in a little bit. So I use humor because I think it helps people feel comfortable. I go out to the crowd and I tell everybody, man, I'm so nervous to be in front of you. I really just hope I don't bomb this, because it's the last time. And that's why I started off my presentation. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to like Microsoft or Wells Fargo or whoever. That's why I started off. And then then a few more jokes, and I tell jokes to help disarm the situation. Knee slapper if you got them. I don't, but go for it. But I think it puts people at ease, right? It makes them not worry about like, what do I say to this guy or how do I react to them? No, And whenever I go and I present, it's funny because if they get a little bit of a write-up on who's coming to speak, they're like, I brought tissues, but I didn't know I was going to wipe them from crying from laughter. Yeah. Because I could tell my story in a bunch of different ways, and I could be very serious and this happened to me and very sad. And I'm like, that's just not me, Like the first copy of my book, when they did the hardcover copy, the picture on there, I was like, this is terrible. The second one, the paperback covers me and my daughter smiling, standing in a field with a flag, like I'm like, yeah, this is more realistic to who I am. And I'm writing another book right now. And we're not, I think we're selling the name Bounce Back, but I can't remember if that's where we're at with it. But it's going to be all about resiliency and different people like different stories. So it's like my story with people that also have like cancer or widowed or like survivor of a lost one, lost loved one, bankruptcy, all that stuff, like what they went through, how they got back on top of the world, and then the medical background behind it to support why they were able to get better and what philosophies or things are, happening. So it's going pretty well. I think we're through like 8 of the 12 chapters right now. So should not like roughly done. Like it won't come out to like end of the year or next year.
I love it. And, and I think it's so true. You talk about like, you're kind of disarming people because again,
I learned it from the Taliban.
Yeah. Well, you use humor in this way that almost cuts down that barrier because number one, there's a barrier between the military community and the civilian community in general. Yeah. Right. And then there's also kind of this reverence that comes with seeing someone that has been injured, serving our country. And I think it's all done in the most respectful way that people want to be very serious and, patriotic and diplomatic with you when, and as soon as you kind of show them that side of your personality, it kind of disarms them from being like, okay, this is just a normal guy that I can actually have a conversation with, and yeah. Ask questions if I feel like I'm, comfortable asking questions. So I love it.
I literally tell everybody, like, okay, so when I give my presentation, I go there and if they have a cocktail hour, I'll go. And barely anybody talks to me. They kind of look over at me and like, oh my gosh, remember that dude? Like they're like they want to say hi. Some have maybe seen my videos with Jocko or videos online or whatever. So they'll come and like shake my hand and smile and talk. And if it's like a room of like, I don't know, say 300 or 500 people, by the time I'm done presenting, after that full hour's up, they like sometimes they'll have a half-hour break before like the next thing. And they have to like ask me to leave because the line gets so long. People take pictures with me. They want to ask me questions because I want to be that personable, And I tell them, the last thing I tell them is I show a picture of I show a picture of me, Chloe, and Kelsey, and I say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you something. People always want to ask questions and they don't know if they're allowed to. And just know you're allowed. Nothing's going to bother me. You're not going to offend me, hurt my feelings. I'll start you off. And I say, still got it, still works. And I throw a picture of my son up there just to show that they know the biggest question they probably had, I answered. And then that way, by the end of the night, people are hanging out. And if I'm not the opener or closer, if I'm not the closer of the conference, it becomes like a juggling act of like, I tell them, hey, I'm not the pusher. So if you got someone that's going to take pictures on the iPhone for them and tell them to keep moving, you need to do that because they want to tell me anything about their sisters, brothers, cousins, husbands, ex-wives, lover's best friend's mom. Like, I'm going to listen and nod along. I'm not that guy. Like, you need to move. I'm like, not going to happen. Yeah. And I feel like they've had to like usher me out basically. So the next speaker had like an audience, and not that the speaker was bad, just because I joke around so much and people are like, oh, it's he's a regular guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, so at Travis Manion Foundation, we actually, veterans that go through our programs, they actually take an assessment. It's called the VIA assessment, where they identify their top character strengths. So veterans that go through our programs do it, our entire staff does it. And my number one character strength is humor. And, there's times where I kind of, you lean into it so well. And I love that. And there's times for me that I sometimes underuse my top character strength because I'm afraid that it makes me like less professional, in certain circumstances. So I don't always lean into it. And I've started to like kind of not care so much. And, I put up a video the other day. I was in Puerto Rico and they were our videographers were trying to shoot a video, and literally these huge iguanas were falling out of the tree, and they kept doing like retakes. And so it was a bunch of different cuts. And, the second time the iguana falls out of the tree, I'm like, fuck. And I run out of the frame, and they sent it. They made it into a little video and they sent it to me. And I like went back and forth on whether to post it because it was freaking hilarious. But I'm like, I don't know. And I sent it, and I actually had someone from the director of corporate responsibility at USAA. She sent me an email and she's like, just have to tell you that iguana video made my day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, you follow me and you watch my, and listen, USA is a big partner of ours. Like, I never want to mess up any partnerships. And I actually wrote back to her and I was like, I'm like, thanks so much. I'm like, it was hilarious. I was like, I went back and forth over whether I should post or not because I was cursing. And she wrote back, she's like, hashtag be authentic. And I'm like, yeah, like this is who I am, and
Yeah.
it was freaking funny and I'm going to post it. So, but I love that you just kind of lean into it. And I also think it's hilarious that, you do a lot of stuff with Jocko, and Jocko is like, he's kind of the antithesis of not using humor. I mean,
You know what? Yeah, I hear you watch episode 90 of his podcast, or you'll see a different side of Jocko people didn't know he had. At first I think he was getting irritated because he kept laughing, and he's like, "This is not the demeanor I always had." And I know, outside of the podcast stuff,
yeah.
and I'm like, dude, you can be a fun guy, like, you don't worry about it,
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's very like, yeah, there I was, you can do it,
Well,
and he's
that's
yeah,
ours was.
yeah,
I did I was on his podcast and it was very serious. And that's how, and and he was reading passages from my book, and
yeah.
it was all very, very Jocko. But we just had him out. He spoke at our gala, and Leif and Jenna came out, and Jocko and his wife, who I was able to meet his wife, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's freaking lovely and such a perfect compliment to him. But I saw him kind of let his guard down, and I saw him laughing. I saw him smile so much. And Jenna even turned to me at one point and she's like, oh my gosh, like Jocko's like having the time of his life. And it was just so cool to kind of see him in that element.
Yeah.
It was neat. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Have you been to Austin, like where Leif and Jenna, you ever been to like by their house?
I haven't. No.
Well,
Not a
they
lot.
have the coolest, it's like in the middle of like these little bars and like breweries and stuff. Like I just randomly was there for an event in Austin, and I went and met some, and really good friends of ours, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, Lake like lives down the street. That's where they moved." I'm like, "No, I did not know that." So I called them, like, "Yeah, we'll be there at 5." So if you ever go like down to, I can't remember where it was at, but like it's at the south side of Austin or whatever, I think. And like you drive through like basically like the bush. It looks like kind of like the bush, if you will, like in Australia. And then all of a sudden, boom, here's a brewery, here's live music, and some of the best barbecue you've ever had. It's pretty cool. But no, I mean, I do use humor. I think it helps, with everybody in the whole area. I mean, I can be serious. Like I said, if there's something at one of my, I'm fortunate to have like over 100 people that work for me at one of my, for-profit entities, if you will, and we all joke around, and have a good time, and I tell them how things are going, and I what we expect to have happen. But for the most part, if you're an adult, I'll treat like an adult, and I luckily don't got to like, I don't know, get my hands dirty with a lot of the reprimands and stuff like that, because I don't like to do that stuff. Let's say at my restaurant, I go around the table, I was like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And they're always like, "It's great," and I'm like, "Good," because if you have a complaint, I don't take those. Like if someone's a bad review, I go at them on face. I go hard. You write a bad review, you're gonna hear from me.
Oh,
And
you're
gonna
that
change.
guy. You're that
Oh,
restaurant owner that goes back. I love reading the Yelp reviews where people are like, they put the review down and then the owner comes back in and is like, that's not how it went, and replies. So you're
yeah.
that guy.
Well, I'm that guy. Yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, I used to be, but now I'm not. We got really good reviews. If you ever find yourself in East Winthrop, Maine, the White Duck Brew Pub, it's going pretty well. So,
White Duck
yeah.
Brew Pub. Okay. I love it.
Well, tavern, but then it was in the 50s, so we renamed it White Duck Brew Pub and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah. So, like I said, I just, those early days and those meetings that we had, with you, with others, like Todd Nicely came in to visit me. He's a second ever quadruple amputee. Other people, stepping up to the plate. It showed me like, okay, well, life's not over, and there's stuff to be grateful for and to push forward. So, any of my success, you can attribute most of it to you. So thank you. I do appreciate that because I just piggybacked off the whole, TMF, and I was just like, oh yeah, yeah, no, that's me, TMF. So that was, I know they were talking about you, but I stole them. I was like, no, 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 you got the wrong. No, it's for this.
Oh my God, I love it. So, okay, so you've got a new book coming out, or you're working on a new book,
Yep.
loosely titled Bounce Back.
Yep.
Name change may happen, but right now that's the working title. And it's about resilience. So, this is the Resilient Life podcast. It's not always about talking about resilience, but it's about having on resilient individuals. And you 100% are a resilient individual. Do you think about that? Like, do you think about resilience in your own life and what that means to you?
So that's okay. So that's the thing, right? So the reason I'm writing the book is because that nobody can comprehend. No, not nobody. A lot of people can't comprehend how I do. How do I live? Like, how do you live life? And I can't, easy enough. I'm like, oh, I have to. I got no other choice. And that's not a good enough answer. So I'm like, as simple to me as it's like, well, what else am I gonna do? I gotta do something. I figured let's put it down in words. So that's why I'm actually writing the book because I was like, I wonder why I'm able to do this. And my kids, especially my daughter, she gets so annoyed because she's like, I can't do it. Or something's I'm like, oh, excuse me. She's like, okay, Dad, fine. Never give up, never quit. Ugh. Like that's my slogan.
Yeah.
And she's like, I know. Shut up. I don't care. And I just think that if people can get something out of my story, just like they get out of your story, it helps build happiness and um, freedom in life to pursue new things or to get over something that's bothering them. Like I'll help out any way I can. So being a resilient person, I think it's just something I won't say forced to do because I guess I do have a choice if I just want to sit here and do nothing or go out and do stuff. But I get the opportunity, and I think just like the loss of your brother, I had some really fantastic friends that never made it back home. And I had doctors and nurses that worked on me for 14 hours straight, where two nurses took turns pumping air in and out of my lungs to keep me alive for 9 hours. And they had to donate blood from their veins that were the universal blood and A positive because the blood bank ran out of my blood that day. And they had people rush to the doors of the hospital to give A positive universal blood. And I think it'd be such a selfish slap in the face to you and your family for the sacrifice that you actually did make compared to the arms and legs that I lost, where I live in a nation that, gives me prosthetics where I can do anything for the most part that I want, be successful, as well as just I have the ability. So when I do get serious, like I am, right now, hopefully you can tell, when it comes to resiliency, it was a choice. But when you have a 6-month-old looking up at you and you're still her dad and she's not scared of you, and then she learns how to walk at the same time, we learn how to walk together. She would ride in my wheelchair. We are legitimately like best friends. Like I pick her up, her friends up. They spill the tea. I mean, I know all the gossip. You want to know about 6th grade Miranda Club, you let me know. But and then my son, he was a blessing, and we did try for him, and we got the blessing of having him. And I just don't think we live in a place where I could give up on myself because look at how fortunate I am. Yeah, I think that's sometimes it, right? Stripping it back and seeing like the good instead of the bad. My chef at my restaurant was a little bit irritated. We had a 60 top that scheduled to come in at opening at 11 o'clock at like the day after, like we had one of the busiest days ever. He's like, I'm like, they're picking this because it's the best place to eat with the freshest food made from scratch because of your cooking. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, so it's a compliment to who you are. And they called to make sure it was gonna be okay. And because we have faith in you and your team that you've built, that yeah, we can do this. And we did. I mean, we had managers and waitresses showing up and doing prep work just so it wouldn't go out. So it's just, sometimes how you look, I guess it's very cliche and overused, I'm sure, how you look at things, but look at the platform you have. I mean, you probably wouldn't have the same platform if your brother was still in the Navy and crushing it. But
Marines.
He went to Annapolis. Okay, that's not fair. He went to Annapolis.
But he was a Marine.
I love it when I knew you. Oh. because I knew it was going to a joke, but then I feel bad because I actually just disrespected him and he's not here to stand up for himself. But you, because that's why I tell all the guys that are Marines that they're in the Navy. And as soon as I said it, I started to actually feel really bad because I'm like, that's actually disrespectful. But then I'm not going to treat him any different than I treat all the other guys who went to Annapolis that are, because my cousin did the same thing. Whatever. He was in the Navy, but he went to Annapolis. That's not in the weeds here. But the platform that you and I have now, and the things that we do that we were, called to do after, our unfortunate situations, we're just lucky to do them, and we do them the best of our ability because we're given the platform, the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I say that every day. I mean, listen, if there's been so much good that has happened through the Travis Manion Foundation, and we've been able to work and support so many veterans and families of the fallen, and I feel grateful and blessed for those opportunities. But selfishly, I would give it all back to have my brother here, of course. But I also understand that I've been given this platform, and that I have a responsibility to keep moving forward. I say the same thing all the time. Like, I very easily, and I've seen other families who have lost loved ones in service, take the opposite approach and almost claim this victim mentality, and kind of pull the covers up over their heads. And there was no way. Number one, Travis would have struck me down at this point if I even attempted to do that. There was no way that I was going to do that, because it's such a dishonor to him, and it's not the way that he would have wanted me to live. And so, I think it is all about how we look at things. It is all about how we look at the opportunities and the adversity that we're all inevitably going to be faced with. And every single person is, right? And it's all how we respond to that. And, your response to what happened to you on April 10th, 2012 has been nothing short of remarkable. And, and you should be proud of that. And you set such an incredible example for the community that you represent. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that too, and so, I thank you for that. I really do.
I appreciate it. I'm just a regular everyday guy. Had a bad day at work. Now I get front row parking. So it's not all bad. But no, I mean, it's just at the end of the day, like I said, I can't change it. I always tell people the 2 life lessons is don't dwell on the past, just reminisce it. Like I told you earlier, with the whole 25 years with arms and legs and one bad day at work. So I just reminisce what I had, and I don't dwell on the fact I got blown up. And then I also tell people you can't always control a situation, but you can always control your attitude. And just like you, not only your brother, but your mother. And, you have to control your attitude and be as positive as you can, even through the toughest times, because that's the one thing that we can actually control. And, I wake up no arms, no legs on. Like, that's my situation. So it is what it is. But my attitude is going to be always upbeat, because I get the chance to still have the ability to be here. So I don't know. I mean, that's about it. I'm not like that. I'm getting Bosley done, I think, just so you guys know. So next time you see me, I'll probably have way better hair. And there's this new magic pill out there called Wegovy, Wegovy. It's like for diabetes, but I don't have diabetes, but it's for fat loss too. And it's like people are losing. So I'm calling my doctor next to see if I can get it prescribed.
I would be careful with that. I've done a little bit of research on that. There's like, yeah. So these semaglutides, we're going to get way off topic real quick, but these semaglutides, so yes, they are very effective, but they basically kill your appetite. So you will have zero appetite. That is why you lose weight. You will just not be able to eat, essentially. But the problem with it in the long-term studies, and there's not a lot, but in the long-term studies that they've done on these, it's like Wegovy and Mounjaro are the two kind of names that they have out there on the market, is that when you stop taking these, it's almost, I've heard people talking about it, that it's actually like a eating disorder drug that they're presenting. Now, if you are massively obese and are having like a ton of health issues, like, yeah, but if you got to just drop a few pounds, I would caution, because they say that once you stop taking them, it's almost like a lifelong drug. Once you go on it, you kind of have to stay on it, because once you stop taking them, everything resets, and it can do a little bit of damage to your metabolism. So just do a little research on it.
Worth it. Just kidding. All right, I just want to research on it, but we'll see.
Well, listen, maybe you'll be out there as like the Wegovy spokesperson, like we'll see you in the commercials and stuff.
Well, let me tell you something. I did offer that to Bosley, and I do think I'm going to get a spokesman or like ship with them, because the price they were offering me for my hair, I was like, that's a little bit. I mean, hey, I got a decent sized following. Anyways, I'm going to look. 2023 is my glow up. Anyway, so we're way off topic. I apologize.
I love it. Travis, you're awesome. I'm so glad we were able to reconnect and talk, and we have to do it more offline. I think the world of you. I think the world of your family. You guys are, again, such a shining example of the best that this country has to offer. You gave your limbs for this country, but you continue to give back. And I mean that with all sincerity. I thank you for that. Keep kicking ass, and thank you for joining us on the Resilient Life.
All you gotta do is change a few words, and you say the exact same thing about yourself. And I was like, "Look at you! This is all about you." And then you said my name, and I was like, "No, you're a winner." Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys. And like I said, next time my glow up is coming. You'll look so good.
All right, next year we'll have you with your new hair and your weight loss transformation. I'm looking forward.
That's right.
Thanks so much.